Hi, everybody. This is Mallory Flowers on behalf of Jennifer Shelf and Associates, and we are coming to you live from Washington, D.C. And welcome to our Webinar Wednesday series. We are hosting a full day of complimentary webinars every 30 minutes until 4:30 p.m. Eastern, and our speakers range from accountants to attorneys and other industry professionals. The full schedule is on our website underneath the webinar tab. In the interest of time, we do not take questions, and our speakers' contact info is listed on the last slide. So if you have any questions, please contact the speaker directly. The recordings are on our website underneath the Archive Webinar tab as well as on our YouTube channel. And this is just a quick blurb about us. Jennifer Shelf and Associates help both product and service companies with federal contracting. Our services range from market analysis reports to contract vehicles, including the GSA schedule. We can also help you with proposal writing and post-award contract administration. More information about our services can be found on our website. And these are a few of our upcoming classes in January, and more information can be found on our website about fees. We are now offering advertising in our weekly newsletter and in our 2019 Webinar Wednesday series. Please contact me for more information. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and dig into today's presentation, which is the 5 biggest omissions of B2G marketing and how to easily fix them. And Stephen Vito is our presenter.
Well, thank you, Mallory, and thank you, Jennifer Shelf, for hosting this and inviting me to participate today. I'm very excited about this. I'm certainly excited about this topic, and this is based on an article I wrote, by the way, that's on LinkedIn, and it got quite a good reaction. So, again, thank you for letting me talk about it today. Okay, so the 5 biggest omissions in B2G marketing, and I think this is just as important, how to easily fix them, and they are easily fixed. Too often overlooked. So let's get right to it. By the way, let me talk about, before you go to the next slide, Mallory, let me talk about the genesis of this article and presentation. A buddy of mine asked me what I consider the biggest mistakes in B2G marketing. And in response to that, as I was writing it, I felt that was a little bit on judgmental, condescending side to say what's a mistake and what isn't. So I eased the pain a little bit and called it omission. However, having said that, there are 2 major egregious mistakes that I see all the time. And I just want to talk about them real quick. And if your company is guilty of them, please address it. So, Mallory, please go to the next slide, and we'll talk about what those 2 major mistakes are. 1, some companies do no marketing. I don't get it. It makes no sense. They'll have an IT department, an HR department, a finance department, but the one department other than sales that can generate revenue, a lot of companies don't have one. If this is your company, please urge them to do marketing. I think the basis of that, by the way, is that a lot of senior managers don't understand marketing, don't know how to measure marketing, and thus they don't do any. It's just, I think, again, a major mistake. Second is a lot of companies, particularly OEMs, they handle the marketing out of headquarters. And sometimes it's in Silicon Valley or in Texas or New England or wherever. And they are working under the assumption that marketing to the public sector is comparable to marketing to all other verticals. It isn't. It's a different market. It has a different language. It has different issues that must be addressed. It's a very different market. And I've seen too many companies waste a lot of time and a lot of money trying to use their tactics that they use in other verticals into the federal market particularly. And again, that is a mistake. So if your company is guilty of either of those, doing no marketing or handling it out of headquarters, please address that. Okay, so let's go into the 5 omissions. And thank you, Mallory, for advancing that. The first one is they don't have a database. Building and maintaining a quality database admittedly is not easy, but it's fundamental to success for all of your marketing activities. It doesn't matter what you want to do. If you want to introduce a new product, if you want to introduce new pricing, announce a new executive to your team, regardless of what you want to do, it starts with a good database of names. And those names should include, at a minimum, it should include customers, prospects, and partners. There's other people that you may want to include on that, but at a minimum, it should include that. Okay, so then you say, well, you know what? We don't have a database. How do we build one? Well, that could be a webinar all onto itself, but it's not rocket science. It starts with one, you could buy names. There are some really good directories out there that give you names of federal executives. That I think is a good way to start. Second way is you could sponsor events, sponsor webinars. They usually give you the attendee list, and that's certainly worth looking into. You could ask your sales folks, oh my gosh, these people carry around in their heads, on their files, in their inboxes, names of a lot of very important people that you should be communicating to with, on a regular basis. So building a database is important. However, maintaining the database is just as important. You can assume that 30% of your database, almost 1/3 of your database, no matter how good it is, will turn over annually. People will move on to different organizations, people will die, people will whatever, retire from government, retire from the company they're with. Whatever the reason is, 1/3 of your database will be useless in 12 months. So you need to keep that database current. There's a lot of ways of doing that. A couple ways that I like personally are using newsletters or using blogs. My preference is blogs, since usually the content there's a little bit more interesting than in a newsletter. But whatever you do, again, build a database and maintain database. Okay, Mallory, next slide. Content marketing. A lot of companies don't have a content marketing strategy. Content marketing it's been around a while, but it's emerged over the last few years as probably one of the more important tactics in marketing in general. So let's first define what is content marketing. Content marketing is first providing useful and important content, and by the way, sometimes they're different, useful and important content in various forms to a defined audience or audiences for a variety of outcomes. You want to build goodwill. You want to define your brand. You want to project thought leadership. You want to nurture the prospect through the sales cycle. You want to capture quality leads. There's a lot of outcomes that you could want. But again, I think it starts with a set formula, and here's the fix on that. I've deployed this several times, many times actually, and it's not rocket science, but it is very important. One, you want to develop the strategy, and the strategy here in something like this is you want to define what is the important audiences. Two, what is useful and important content that they need to do their job. Talk that through, think it through, and then also in the strategy, you want to say, what do we consider to be a success? I'm going to get into that a little bit later too. Then you want to develop the content. Here, I would suggest do a low risk, low cost effort initially, maybe some white papers. You could do an infographic. They can get a little pricey. I ultimately think every company should have a video strategy, some sort of video on their website or on their social media. But think through what is the content that you want. Could be a webinar. 3, you want to deliver the content. You want to think through the timing of how to deliver that content. You want to think the cost of delivering that content. There's a lot of different ways of doing it. I certainly would encourage social media being part of that formula. And then you want to measure, how was it? And if somebody says, well, we want to measure the success by revenue, I would suggest they really don't know marketing, especially in public sector. The reason I say that is revenue in public sector lags. It could lag months, years behind when you did some marketing. It is just not, I don't think, a good way to measure the effectiveness of a marketing tactic. However, there are some good ways. And I would suggest that you look at maybe your pipeline. Did you see an increase in pipeline? Did you see an increase in the average size of your opportunities in your pipeline? Did your pipeline have perhaps, the agencies you wanted or the partners that you wanted? So there are ways of measuring, I think, the tactics that you deploy far more dependable than just measuring it on revenue. And guess what? No matter what you do, you're not going to be 100% successful. Nobody is, nobody will be. Then you revise your plan. So develop a strategy, think through how you're going to, the content you want and against the budget. Nobody has an unlimited budget. Deliver the content, measure the content, and revise accordingly. So that's the second one. All right, Mallory, next one, third. No engagement with social media. This one also baffles my mind. Social media, I think, is a godsend for marketers, whether it's public sector or any market, really. You can deliver messages on a low cost and very precise basis. And please don't get me wrong. I'm a proponent of traditional media. My background was in traditional media, is in traditional media, and it serves a very important purpose in the whole ecosystem of public sector and facilitating communications. But you know what? Social media is very valuable, and every company should have some sort of engagement in social media. You could put up a social media website on Facebook, LinkedIn. I would suggest, by the way, the ones I have most experience in is Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter to some extent, and YouTube. I don't know that you need all four, maybe 3 out of those 4, but establish a budget. Again, you can do some really easy experiments on delivering different kind of content via social media. And again, you can define your audience very precisely where you want your content to go. Do it, try it, make a mistake. So what? It's not expensive. Measure the result and then revise. But social media today is so important in terms of communicating to your customers that it has to be part of everyone's marketing. Okay, number 4. Number 4, no measurement or measuring the wrong stuff. As I said when we were talking about the second omission, it's important, I think, that companies define what is a success. And again, I think revenue can be a very misleading way of measuring success of marketing. Just to reiterate, just because no marketing result and just because no revenue resulted from a marketing tactic, that doesn't mean it was unsuccessful. There's a lot of good ways to measure it. So you have to define what is successful. And then you define from that, how do you want to measure success? You can measure it actually on your engagement with your social media. If you do a social media marketing campaign, did people go and engage and subscribe to maybe whatever or follow whatever your website on social media? So it's, I think, very important to define what is success and measure that. So again, I think the pipeline is a good way of doing it. The number of opportunities, the average size, and whatever else may be in that pipeline. Okay, the fifth I think is the biggest omission that I see in B2G marketing, and that is the poor communications between sales and marketing. I see this all the time, and it can be lethal. It will waste a lot of time and a lot of money for companies if the two departments, the sales department and the marketing department, are not on the same page. They must be saying the same things. So here's the fix on this. And the irony is, this is so inexpensive. For the cost of some bagels or some sandwiches, I would encourage companies to have a quarterly roundtable discussion amongst their, amongst their key salespeople, senior salespeople, and people that interact with your partners. So not only people that go to your customers, but people that move laterally to partners and potential partners. And then talk to them, listen to them, and then also it's a two-way. You want to explain to them what you're doing, and you want to learn from them. This is, I think, the most important thing to do. So, Mallory, if you can go on the next slide, I have some questions relative to this, because I think, again, this is something I've seen continually in my time, and it's just too egregious not to address. So here's some of the questions I would ask your salespeople. Again, a roundtable discussion is, how do your salespeople describe your company? And one of my favorite questions to ask is, I give people a piece of paper and I ask them, you're at the neighborhood barbecue, somebody that knows nothing about public sector, nothing about whatever market you're in, whatever your company does. And then you say, that person at the barbecue asks you, oh, so what does your company do? And I ask everybody to write that down, how they respond. Inevitably, no one says the same thing. That's a problem. You need to have consistent messaging. So I would ask your senior sales team, how does your salespeople describe our company? And then, of course, you want to have a conversation about your strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats, the typical SWOT conversation. Who are the primary competitors? What advantage do they have over us? What advantage do we have over them? Who is the ideal client and what makes them ideal? Who are the decision makers within that client? What are their titles? What are their roles in an organization? Sometimes, as you know, titles can be pretty misleading. If you lose a deal, who did you lose it to? And why? What was the reason? Here's the last one I think is very important, and salespeople really have some good insight into this. What events are worthwhile to going to, and what ones are a waste of time and money? Excuse me. The federal market, as everybody knows, is just inundated with events. Breakfast events, lunch events, dinner, happy hours, all over the place. Some of them are quite good. Some of them are a total waste of time and money. Salespeople, when they attend them, they'll come back and they'll let you know which ones they like and which ones they don't. So those are the, those are, again, it's an overview, but those are what I consider to be the most egregious errors out there, omissions out there. And the first two, as I said, are mistakes. And those two mistakes are companies that don't do any marketing, which is bizarre to me, or the marketing is handled out of headquarters, handled by people that don't understand the federal market. I think that may be it, Mallory. I don't know what's the next slide. Oh, next slide is my contact information, I think. I can be reached at svito@entrepreneurialgov.com. My telephone number is 703-615-6787. Mallory, that concludes my presentation.
Thank you so much, Stephen, and thank you for everybody who joined us. Thank you for sharing your time with us today. And if you have any questions, please contact Stephen directly with the information he just said and the information you see on your screen. Thank you, everybody.